it's just after 4:30. We'll go ahead and get the work session up and going. Thank everybody for being here with us and joining us for the work session today. We'll go through in just a second and do department head updates, probably do a little bit more general discussion before the department head updates. Just as you know, we were in the room here 2 weeks ago, and as we completed the work session, we had a storm that came in between the work session and the regular meeting that we moved to the basement to finish. So Mr. Dean was here. Our EMA director has a wonderful ability to choose his vacation time and be completely out of state at the time when the tornadoes hit our county. But he timed it well. He was available on the phone and was trying to help. But you couldn't have picked the worst time to take a vacation. So all vacations for EMA have now been canceled for all future dates. He did do well, but I want to brag on Philip for just a minute, because I called Philip as I was driving out of here and said I really desperately need the EOC open, and he said I'm in here right now getting it all turned on. And I also want to brag on Sheriff Craig and his staff with Sandy and several of their people that came in and manned it. The governor's office actually sent several state troopers to assist and to be in the EOC to man the operation to try to make sure that everything went fluid. Kurt and his team, they had crews everywhere, cutting, trying to clear paths, trying to make sure we can get. Philip put all of his crews, so all of our normal water department crews were out with chainsaws. Sheriff's office and fire department were out with chainsaws as well, cutting paths. The response that came in from everybody was phenomenal. Christy actually went and jumped on the radio with the other dispatchers, and was it
272 calls.
272 calls within just a short period of time. They had 272 911 calls that came in during that time. But I do want to also say that, and I know this has kind of been mentioned a time or two, there was not a single injury or fatality related to the storm itself. One injury did occur from cleanup where somebody was cutting a tree off of a line and it hit him in the head. And so we did have an injury from that. We later had a DUI accident that was a fatality after the storm on the same night, but it wasn't related to the storm itself. So it's amazing at 5 o'clock on a Thursday to have 2 tornadoes hit our county, and with all the vehicles that were on the road and all the trees that were on the road. I think Kurt said last count there was 108.
Yeah, about 108. It's probably up to about 110 now affected roads.
108 to 110 affected roads with trees on them. So it's just going to be a slow cleanup, but they're working their tails off. There's crews that have been spread out throughout the county, and I know as we go through the department head updates, I'm not going to try to steal, but I want to personally say thank you to everybody that jumped in. I know the sheriff's office had gone through a rough week. They started off on a Monday with an officer-involved shooting incident, and on a Thursday we had a tornado. So you can imagine the strain that put on them, being a few people down, and they still immediately sent people over and just kept it going. So you got to see, I think Mark, even though he wasn't here, that we were all one Pickens without him, even though he's created the tagline for one Pickens that he's worked on really, really hard. So even in his absence, we continued on, and it shined in the event of the storm. Even Commissioner Tippin showed up as he was coming back into the EOC before heading out to one of the fire stations to help. So it was, and Commissioner Tatum called me repeatedly on roads that he was finding where areas were. So I mean, you had everybody that dove in and was there. So I want to just publicly say thank you to everybody for just a tremendous effort. And I think it's been noticed by the calls and emails I've received since in the last 2 weeks. The public noticed your hard work. They noticed the continued effort. They saw the road and water department guys continuing to work through the weekend on Saturday and Sunday, all the way up until this past Friday when they finally got to take a breather. And I don't know if anybody paid attention to the weather last week, but with the heat and the humidity, you couldn't have picked a worse week to be out there cutting trees. And so I know we had talked collectively about trying to put together something as it cools off and we get a little bit more caught up on the roads to show our appreciation to all our staff for what an amazing job y'all did. Kenny actually had their crew came in on a day off on a Monday and opened up the recycling center so people who had no power could dispose of some things that were spoiling and going bad. So it was just everybody. He picked up the phone, make one phone call. Brian opened up the pool. The pool, I mean, we couldn't offer much to get the power back on, but if you were hot, we wanted to give them a chance to go cool off. And between the using of the pool and the air conditioning at the community center and the internet at the community center, I never actually publicly put out on social media that the showers were there as well, but they did individually, some questions came in, and so some people that were without power had an opportunity to go and use the community center as well. So it was great to witness, and I want to make sure to just say a huge thank you to every one of you for all that you did not go unnoticed. I do want to point out that if anyone that was in this room will recall during our work session when I spoke to our fire chief and asked him how things were going, and he uttered the famous words of "it's been really quiet." Within a few minutes, it wasn't quiet, so he's been picking on this. So when we go through the department head updates tonight, we will not have a department head update from the fire department. Sloan can speak on his behalf to the side, and he's a little time out there. But it was, we made up for any quiet time that we had in the last 2 weeks, for sure.
Those terroristic threats have been recalled.
Yeah, well, that's good. There were some death threats, I think, that were thrown out later.
Just by his fire dispatcher.
So,
That's what I wanted to say. If you guys want to say any more before we go into updates.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for all your work y'all done. It's been amazing to watch. So thank you so much for all y'all done.
I can't add anything to what Commissioner Stansel said, but the community is our strongest asset that we've got, and this was on full display. So proud to represent Pickens County, part of it, and glad nobody was hurt and everything's on the mend. So.
One story on a citizen in the Fitz Road area, and I won't call them by name because I know that they would never want it to be said, but the night of the storm, there was a citizen that immediately started going out from door to door on Fitz Road, clearing the road, had his own equipment, trying to clear, and spent the whole night, into Friday, working on trying to get access to where all his neighbors were checked on and taken care of. I went to go just tell him thank you when I pulled up in their driveway on Friday, and there's a tree laying across where his whole front porch was ripped off of his own house and generator running trying to get power. He never even touched his house. He took off to help his neighbors. So I think that was, we had examples of employees that were just grabbing chainsaws and walking down the street, cutting trees, and just across the county. It's just moments like that we realize what a community we live in, and we hate to have to go through tragedies, but I think in a tragedy like that you get to see that neighbors, helping neighbors is a phenomenal thing that we get to experience. So I will dive in on some updates. I know everybody's been so focused on storm that may be where we all are stuck at, but I'll open up to get some updates. I know Kirk had a couple from the roadside. You want to dive in on that?
Yes, we've been talking back and forth with the contractors on the paving. Unfortunately, they have pushed our paving to September. Second week of September is what I'm getting right now. Again, that's contractors, and I have no power over the contractors, but that's what they're telling us right now, which that does get us past Jeep Fest, so we wouldn't have that going on at the same time. So that's the update on that. Again, on the storm, a big hats off to everybody that helped with it. I can't do any more than what the commissioner said, but I know my guys, whenever the storm hit and I made the phone call, I actually wound up in 911 for a little while, and I got a whole new perspective on what the 911 operators do, and I know that I am not cut out for that job. Should there ever be an opening, do not put me anywhere around that place. But I made the phone call at around 5:30, hold the guys. My guys were fixing to punch out. They already had 40 hours in, and a lot of them had another 40 hours in before Sunday afternoon. And I know Phillips guys were the same way. They'd already put in their time for that week, and they put in another week before the weekend was out. So, I can't thank them enough. And, like you said, all it takes is a phone call, and it was all hands on deck. I had mechanics putting out signs. I had the sign guys were cutting trees. It was literally all hands on deck. So big hats off to those people. As far as the cleanup, I'd say realistically, we're probably looking at 4 to 6 weeks to get everything, back to normal. We've still got a couple of roads that are in pretty bad shape that the buses are not able to go through yet, and those are our top priority. We're going to try to get those open back up, just as quick as possible, Fitz being one of them. We've made great strides on it. Again, the guys have worked their butts off this week, to get done what they can and get as many open as we can. But like I said, probably 4 to 6 weeks on that. Unfortunately, some of our maintenance stuff you're probably going to be seeing put on the back burner. I still have mowing crews out, but some of our projects are going to be delayed, and just our normal day-to-day stuff is going to be put off because getting our roads open back up is our priority right now, and trying to get as many people back to normal as we can. And that's about it. I feel like I'm forgetting something, and probably am, but
Really, is that all?
ask me in a couple weeks.
One thing on roads, and I know we've gotten a few calls that have came in, and it's on bridges. We do have a bridge the sign that we're waiting on some inspectors to come out to try to inspect the weight limit. I know there were some parents concerned because the school bus is not crossing over a bridge on Upper Salem Church, where historically I guess they had. And so we've got an engineer that's going to come up and take a look and try to do a re-inspection to ensure the weight capacity on that. But at the moment, the school system has decided not to cross that bridge until we know for sure. So we are working through that. If y'all do get calls, I know I've received a couple, so I imagine you guys will probably get a few of those as well. But Kurt's already jumped on it and reached out to the state. The bridge was it 6 inches?
6 inches too short to be considered for the state.
State inspector. So that's why it hadn't been inspected by the states, because it's literally 6 inches off. So we're having to reach out to another engineer.
And what brought on the weight limit, we're having tractor trailers come through there and they get hung up and they actually get, they get them unstuck. Well, then you've got a tractor trailer that's pointed toward this little old wooden bridge, and we're having them drive on across the bridge. So instead of having these trucks, land in the creek, we posted it, and unfortunately it's too low for a bus at the moment. So as soon as we get some higher qualified people out there to inspect it, and hopefully we'll get the weight rating up on it, even if it requires some repairs or upgrade the bridge a little bit, we're willing to do that, but it's just going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah. Any road stuff? Thank you again for everything. Philip? Mm-hmm. Jump in on water stuff. I know you've been EMA stuff and more than you've been water. And I normally would call on Mark, but what either one of you want to talk about the FEMA, GEMA, and the state versus federal declarations and why we're not there. If y'all want to either one dive in on that.
I have a little bit of information on that. I talked to Jima yesterday afternoon, and unfortunately, right now it's falling short of being a declared disaster. So help is not rushing to come in and reimburse us for what we've done. The amount of damages is still growing, so there is still a possibility it may hit the criteria and the minimum threshold of expenses to be declared, but we just have to hold on and wait for that. I want to say I appreciate for everybody who jumped in. It truly is one team, Pickens strong, for every agency to come together in a disaster like this and work together. And I appreciate everybody who did that in my absence.
Did you have a good time off?
Busy.
Couldn't resist.
It wasn't a vacation, it was working. So.
On the water side, any updates or anything on what you've been? I know we've had full crews
No,
that have
I
been
mean,
working on big
we've
trees. So.
pretty much been helping Kurt and his boys getting the roads, trying to get them cleared out, which we've had to pull off a couple days to do maintenance and fix a leak and whatnot. But for the most part, like Kurt said, we're putting our day-to-day operations on hold unless we got something coming up. I got a couple things coming up first of next week that's been on the agenda for a little while, so we got to get those done first of next week. But once we get those done, we're just going to go right back to cleaning the roads and getting them opened up. Because if you don't have all the help, it's just going to put them 6 to 8 more weeks out. So further, so we'll just go ahead and get in there and get it cleaned up. So.
Thank you. I know y'all got a big night tomorrow night, so Brian, you Brian went to the dentist today, so if he's drooling while he talks, that's why I almost didn't want to call on him, but I know there is one.
You want me to read it for you?
That's all right.
Yeah, well, good.
All right, so tomorrow night is going to be Meet the Dragons at the high school stadium. So around 5 o'clock to 5:50, the high school is going to scrimmage themselves. And then once they get done with that, the band's going to come on the field and play. And then once the band gets off the field, we'll start introducing all of our teams. We'll have 6 football teams, and then we have 2 flag football teams to introduce. We'll call everybody's name out, have them run across the field, and then after that, we'll pass the mic to the junior high, and they'll announce their kids, and then the high school will do that. There'll be bounce houses, face painting, food truck, cone ice, so it'll be a big night. Hopefully the weather holds out, and we'll be able to get that done. We'll start games on August the 19th for the little kids and the flag football, and then not too long after that, we'll start playing the regular football team. So the fall is going to be nothing but football or flag football down at the rec, so we'll be very busy.
You have a busy last end of the season at the pool with the public.
It's been really slow. I mean, it really has. I mean, once school starts, the numbers go down tremendously to the point that we've been able to run just 2 lifeguards, usually only 1 on the stand, because there's at one time maybe 10 to 15 people in the pool at a time. So the pool will be shut down this coming Sunday, but we're going to actually keep it open till Wednesday. Fire is going to be coming doing drown proofing at the pool. It'll be just open just for them. Once they get done with their stuff on Wednesday, we'll pull the plug and then we'll start draining the water so that we can start. Sorry. Oh man. We'll pull the plug on Thursday morning so we can start doing some maintenance to the numerous leaks in the pup room and things like that. So. Sorry. So.
Graham, you got the next podcast lined up?
It'll be coming out next Monday.
Next Monday. Who's our featured artist?
So that would be Mr. Mike Carswell.
Okay. Got Marshall coming out on that. If you haven't already had a chance to go check out the podcasts as they're coming, you can listen or watch. Graham does a phenomenal job piecing that together and trying to bounce around to different interests within the county and different individuals. So, again, check that out. Any other updates that need to be made? Am I missing over any that I know that we had? I know we went over a lot of stuff 2 weeks ago. No. Yeah, go ahead, Chief Frederick. I'll let you.
After my comment that night, we got pretty busy. But unless you work here in public safety, we can't say enough of what Christy did for us on our radio. When we're getting just boom, 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 she didn't miss a lick at nothing. And she kept us going, and I just don't think we can say enough on her going down there and taking over that. Because if you play some tapes, you'd see what I'm talking about. It's just, didn't miss a lick at anything for 2 hours. I think she did fuss at me a couple times, but she busted off. That was on the phone.
I went and got to hear it in person, so I sat down there for a while and got to hear it.
I stayed downstairs.
Yeah, Philip wouldn't go downstairs.
I went down there right when I got there, and then I left real
I waited till the pizza got there and then made sure I could be there when they got food and they were happy, so.
You didn't say nothing about that, though. She did a great job with that, getting us. I mean, it was chaotic at minimum. She kind of kept us going.
Kurt, I think, said it best. Until you actually witness what it's like to be in the life of a dispatcher, answering the phone and going through just the absolute sheer chaos that can exist. Nobody, I spent a lot of my career in public safety, and that's a role I could have never done, and I don't even want to pretend like I could have. So.
Things went really smooth on our side. We appreciate all the help with Kurt coming in, just taking pictures and stuff so I can just close the calls and get them off the screen. Everybody coming by to check on us, and the sheriff's office was getting the calls out. Greatly appreciate everybody's help.
Yeah, you shine. So, much appreciated. Anything else on this side? You guys all content? That's all I've got on the agenda, unless you've got something in particular we dive into. I know we've got some upcoming conversations on, with fire stations and kind of working through some things that'll come out of the next week or so. It'll be premature to try to dive in, but I know the chief and director are both working hard, and Commissioner Pickens has been actively involved in working on some too, so. We'll move forward with that. With nothing else, we will go ahead and wrap up the work session. We'll have our regular meeting at 5:30. We'd definitely like to encourage everybody to be here. When we do have the 5:30 meeting, we'll be recognizing an employee that's moving to another county, and so we're going to try to make sure to honor that. So if you're able to be here at 5:30, we appreciate it very much. Thank you.